Welcome to dojo.live, the place where top minds in travel and hospitality check in to share insights and breakthroughs shaping the industry. Brought to you by Encora, your trusted partner for AI, cloud, and data-driven innovation. Enjoy your stay. Hello and welcome to another episode of Encora's Dojo Live, where we have candid conversations with industry leaders who are tackling the biggest technology challenges in travel and hospitality. I'm your host, Kim Lantis, and today we're wrapping up our Unlocking Revenue Insights from Hospitality's RMS Leaders series. Over the past weeks, we have explored AI's impact on revenue management, the shift toward total revenue strategies, and how hotels can go beyond selling rooms to monetizing every touch point. Now, to close out this series with me once again is my wonderful co host, America Guerrero.
Hello everyone. It's a pleasure to be here in the last episode and learn about the
That's
next
right.
era. It's going to be interesting.
That is
Hey, Alex.
absolutely right. And with his amazing insights to close us out is Alex Barros, who's the Strategic Accounts Advisor at BEONx. Alex, thank you so much for joining us today. It's great to have you.
Very good. Well, thank you for having me, and it would be nice to have this chat with you guys.
Yes, it's going to be super exciting because we're talking all about the future today, a tiny bit about what has happened over the past year as well. But as America mentioned, the new era of revenue strategy, how AI is making that happen. Before we take a final look at those AI and data-driven strategies that will shape the future of revenue in hospitality, I'd like to know your story a bit, Alex. If you could tell us your background, what's going on, what's new for you, a bit about BeyondX, and of course, what excites you most about the work that you're doing in the industry today?
Yeah. So I've been in the industry for since I guess I spent most of my career in tech, specifically in travel tech. So I started my very first role within travel was actually working with the Mastercard Premium Collection, where we had like a bunch of offers to activate loyalty programs for Mastercard credit card holders and with luxury brands. And then from there, I moved over to loyalty and worked for an American company for quite a few years doing loyalty programs, paid and also point-based points for independent hotels. Then moved over to SiteMinder, so started getting into the weeds of distribution, and took SiteMinder to Southern Europe. We built
Wow.
a very interesting case study there, where basically we went in with one hotel. After 2 years, we had 3,500, making the brand, really a household name in Southern Europe. After that, Duetto approached me, and I was the first Duetto person in revenue management in Europe. So again, when I joined, they were very, very small. And I signed the marquee contracts for Duetto, like NH Hotels, which today is Minor. And from there, a bunch of other very large accounts joined. And of course, after a couple of years at Duetto as well, I think we went from having something like 100 properties to having like 860 as well. So massive growth once again. Then I went into developing and really working on my own consultancy firm, which I worked for several companies after Duetto, never really being 100% focused on one company only, but advising for
Mhm.
a bunch of tech startups, mostly in travel tech. I did have a 4-year very interesting project on human leadership development, where I was
Nice.
building the platform, which was kind of like a little bit out of the travel tech, but it was still very much tech and building
Yeah.
how do we take knowledge and get the IP prepared to be leveraged and distributed and licensed globally, and obviously protecting the IP for the business. It's a company that's called FHS, and the methodology is called ID1. Super interesting. It's like a very premium, let's say, if you know, for example, Insights or MBTI, Myers-Briggs, maybe that rings a
Mhm.
bell. So those are like really methodologies on steroids to really develop CEOs and leadership teams to perform
Wow.
better, which for me was great
What?
because in the end we work, working with the leadership teams for so many years. We know that the impact that you have in your team and the leaders have in the organization filters down. So whatever
Absolutely.
issues you have or whatever strong let's say attributes that a leader has, they filter down to the organization, and that's really important. And I think that the also, I think, one of the, I mean, it's kind of obvious, but when you understand the science behind it, it's really interesting how you build a team, and the best performance of the team is basically leveraged by your worst performer. So you have 5 people and you
Mm,
have one that's average. Everybody else's potential is going to the bin because you've got a lower leg, and everybody has to like dumb down to be able to go with that person, and then
right.
the organization loses a lot of money, which was very interesting to work with.
It
And
is
then
interesting. That has a lot of application, I think, in the hospitality as well, right? Because that's what we're all
that's in
about.
every
We're about.
organization. That's in every
Uh-huh.
organization, every family, every sort of human, let's say, community will have that
Hmm.
issue, which is very interesting. And then, of course, I worked for a bunch of other tech companies, like Event Intelligence, which they basically collect event data, so hotels can actually use that to sell the rooms to events organizers. Also,
Hmm.
in developing the product with Book Boost, also EasyWay, I mean, and then consulted for BEONx in 2018 with the plan for them on how to become a relevant global player, and that was kind of the goal for Ruben and Emilio. And then
Uh-huh.
we did a roadmap, a strategy on how to do that. And back then I proposed that there would be a rebranding. And years down the line, they came back to me and say, "Hey, I think we're now ready for the rebranding." I was starting to work with Hotelverse, which is another very interesting company. I'm still working with them, and they do like digital twins for hotels to sell specific rooms based on attributes, in the same way that you book, for
Wow.
example, a flight and then you select specific room.
Yes,
So
and that attribute-based strategy is what we're going to actually be talking about a bit
yeah.
today. So I'm excited to hear you. We're talking a lot about your story and its evolution, which is fantastic. We're about ready to talk about the revenue management evolution. So this is the piece about the past that I wanted to touch on a bit before we lean into the topic of today, which is the future. Because throughout this series, we've heard a lot about AI becoming more sophisticated and hospitality revenue management, and it was nearly a year ago that BeOnX, your teammate there, Alvaro Ponte, predicted that generative AI would revolutionize distribution and pricing, enhance predictive accuracy, and transform revenue managers' daily routines. This was in a piece that FocusWire had brought out. So I'm curious, and in that same piece, others forecasted industry-wide shift toward total revenue management. What else was touched on? The seamless system integrations, greater automation. I'm curious about, looking back, in your opinion, what has kind of come to fruition and what aspects of AI adoption are maybe evolving faster or slower than was expected?
I think that we're living through very interesting times where time has accelerated into a point where when you listen to a message, you put like times two. I think like times 20 in terms of technology and how things are going. And obviously with that there are some challenges on adoption because you haven't got professionals that are ready to understand how to lead and how to prompt AI in a way it should be done effectively. People are still experimenting and dipping in, and organizations have literally moved slowly. I think BeOnX has been one of those vanguard organizations. We started using AI almost 2 years ago, like ChatGPT, and that almost years ago when literally was like almost the pre-launch, and things were coming up, and it was very interesting how we started applying it across the whole organization, to the point that we applied all the way from you're doing a job advertising piece. We would basically, okay, this is what your life is going to look like. So my marketing manager, which now is the marketing director for the organization, I stepped down as CEO of BeOnX. about in November last year. And basically, so my contract with them, my agreement was that I was going to come and deliver the rebranding of Beyond Price to BEONx, in which we did an amazing job. I'm really happy with the results. I think that we've managed to put the company in a very good position. Like I think international brands really understand where we play, but I think that a lot of our success has to do with the fact that the founders were able to be fast and nimble and use technology to propel the business to a different position. But I think that there are so many solutions out there right now that have really revolutionized hotels that are actually applying and using it. That can all the way through guest messaging, which does have an impact on revenue generation and revenue management, profitability management. I think that we made more progress this year on applying AI than on total profitability. I think total profitability, the strides we've taken were big, but they weren't huge leaps that we've seen with AI. But I think that Alvaro and everybody else who obviously expected this to happen were spot on, and obviously it's going to continue.
Mhm.
I think that I can see here. I'm just finishing ITB today, and all the technology that you see around, the number of AI platforms is quite. I guess it's wild, but
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
glad. Go ahead, Kim.
I was just saying, you get AI, you get AI, everybody gets AI.
yeah.
Yeah, but Alex touched an important point, which is the profitability component. And I would like to ask you, is there anything still being overlooked when it comes to AI driven pricing strategies for higher profit margins? When hotels rely on AI pricing, what are like the key multi factor data points that should be considered?
Well, I mean, I'm not going to say anything completely out of the blue and different and innovative, but the reality is, I think where we are at this point in time in the market for revenue management, it's a very interesting one, because what happens is, and I like to explain it this way: you've got uh, several, let's say, three different tiers of revenue management solutions in the market. Maybe four, I could even say. So you've got like yield management, which is like something very simple, like a little app within a channel manager, within a rate shopper that kind of gives you a little bit of rules and pricing that you can use. It's very simple, very cheap to deploy, and it's not going to make your hotel extra super powerful, but it will give you more than not doing anything, right? And having static
Right.
pricing. Then you then go into a category, and I won't say any names because I don't think it's appropriate. But basically, there are then brands that or revenue management systems or solutions that then target, let's say, the long tail of the market, where basically you've got not a very complex algorithm, not a lot of data that basically maybe is too much for them. They don't really have the time, the money, the resources, or even the interest. It doesn't really, like, the ROI doesn't really work for them if you think about like adding all these layers. Then you go into basically the professional RMSs, where you've got the big players, which again, no need to name them. You know them all. And I think that what happened there is, from a hotelier's perspective, and from a vendor perspective, looking at the hoteliers, looking at the solutions, is very interesting, because maybe 20% of the market understands the difference between A, B, C, and D, but 80% of them, I dare to say 85%, don't really understand, if you're talking to an ant, a cat, an elephant, or a dinosaur. Like, you don't really understand the dimensions of what it means in terms of data, in terms of complexity, in terms of everything. And what all players are trying to do is trying to simplify it to the point where you can use automation to run things for you, so you don't have to understand complexity as much as you would need to be able to use different solutions. So I think that there's nobody really overlooking things. I think the race now is, how do you bring AI in a useful way, because AI is only good for some use case, not for everything. Uh,
Mm,
use AI properly to create a copilot, to create a revenue manager assistant to give you the insights that you want on the days you want, so you don't have to go and dig and try and find, solutions or outlying opportunities within the books of the hotel. So I think that the biggest challenge for revenue management systems is that, there is now a lot of competition. When I first came into the
yeah.
market, there were three players. When you had Dueto, we had Ideas, and we had Easy RMS at the time. Those were like the relevant players. There was nobody else in the game. Well, and Dueto wasn't even relevant because we were just starting. So there were two players, and these guys were giants in the industry, and very well embedded, and people were, specialists that needed to be really well trained to use those platforms. And I think that from then to now, you have all the way from a hotel that's owned and managed by the owner, and he
Mm,
doesn't know anything about the management. He buys a solution, creates a strategy, the RMS implements and deploys a strategy that they need to deploy, and then autopilot goes on, and life is good. And you have the ones that you have a revenue manager per property, and very complex, looking at every single detail, every single penny is going to make a change. And then you have the groups that are putting, every 10 properties, one revenue manager using autopilot for everything else, and you just look at the opportunities that are not really being taken care of. So I think that's where we are today. I think it's probably exhausting for hoteliers as well. The number of solutions that are out there.
mm, mm.
I think COVID brought this simplification of technology, because you when you fired everybody and you had all those apps and you're paying every single month subscriptions. I guess owners just decide, what, I'm going to get rid of all of it because I don't know, I'm not using it. I don't know what to do with it. So therefore, let's get rid of it. So there was kind of a reset of technology. So a lot of stuff went out. You kept the PMS. Sometimes you kept the RMS. Sometimes you kept that and maybe the CRS, the booking engine, and that's it. Everything else was kind of starting to have to come
Yeah,
back
yeah.
to the table and then being rebuilt. And what we're seeing now is a lot of consolidation. So you see obviously Muse acquired Atomize. You saw a lot of players raising a lot of money, and a lot of partnerships with distribution companies, with RMSs, creating little tiny yield management solutions. So it's a new world. It's a
Right.
new world of revenue management. And I think now revenue management is almost becoming a commodity. And I think we're getting to the point where AI is also embedded in that. But going into the next phase, I think AI is really going to enable tech companies to use the ability to look at profitability in a very different perspective.
All right. I love it. I apologize if there's a jackhammer in the background. I hope you can't hear it. It's not mine. Um, so your expertise, we talked about this already, is in profitability. You also have expertise in attribute-based selling and sustainability. So let's move on to what's being enabled now with the ABS side.
Yes,
Selling hotel rooms is shifting from that traditional pricing model to ABS, where guests get to choose, right? They get to choose based on features that they truly value. It's my understanding that this adoption, at least in hospitality, not in the airlines per se, but it is still relatively slow. What is it? What's holding hotels back from implementing ABS more widely? And if they're interested, what's the best way for them to get started?
absolutely. So I think that, I think that we all like to have control over our choices as humans, right? When you travel, the last thing you want to do is going to a beautiful hotel in the Caribbean, and when you get there, the receptionist who doesn't know who you are, doesn't know how much money you had to save to get there, sends you to a room with a view to the car park. I mean, how disappointing is that? How frustrating is that? And you spend all this week over there, and you did choose the seat for a few hours to get there to the destination. You paid for it because you wanted to have control of that specific journey you had. When you think about the room and how much time you're going to be spending there, and depending on what the occasion is, I think it's super important for you to give the guest the ability to do that. So at Hotelverse, we're seeing, a massive phenomena of people really choosing their rooms and deciding to where they want to stay, and they pay more for it. In the beginning, we didn't think at Hotelverse that like budget hotels would actually use our technology, because it's like, no, it doesn't make any sense. It's only for luxury hotels. Then we had a couple of properties that actually came on board and said, look, I need to use your technology. We were 3 stars. My rates are $60 a night. But guess what? People call me and I have to be dealing with all these requests of having them to stay in room X every single week. And it's a disaster. I don't want to do it anymore. Let's try it. Turns out that people that are paying $60 per room night are actually paying $20 to choose the room they're staying in for every night they're staying there as well. And so if you look at the overall impact on profitability, what using a platform like, for example, Hotelverse has is quite incredible. And it's all money that goes straight down to your EBITDA, because you don't have to pay commission on it for the OTAs. You literally, is money that's coming on top out of all of your costs you already had. So it's really a way to have exponential profits. And I think that there are two sides to it. Of course, you as a guest, you want to have the opportunity to do it. And you as a hotelier, you want to make sure that you have some control as well, right? Because okay, what if somebody overstays? You can always offer alternative rooms, and the person pays for it if you get it and they can accept it or not in the same way that they ask for it. You can offer another one if they say yes, great. And obviously the customer experience is much better. So there are ways of using it. There are other technologies as well in the market that are starting to do it. And I think that with BEONx, part of the roadmap, it is definitely to be able to help hotels to price based on attributes as well. Whereas, for example, if you use Hotelverse, you can actually already price a room because that room has a nice sunset and could be exactly the same room as the next one next door. And people see the value in it. And I think that it's almost shocking that we are able to look at shoes at Amazon 360, and you can see exactly what the shoe looks like, and it costs $100. And you go into a hotel and you're going to be there for a week and you spend $1,500 and you have no idea where you're staying. You get there, surprise, surprise. They have a generic picture that looks like maybe like the bed will be the same and maybe the window will be the same place. But, while you're looking from the outside, it's completely different. So I think that attribute-based pricing and selling and revenue managing is definitely something that all of the major players will end up having to adopt very quickly. Because right now, for example, Hotelverse, we create the rules within their platform. So, because RMSs do not create the ability to each room individually, we enable guests to do it, hotels to do it on the platform. So,
Now that you're talking about adaptability, I'm curious about sustainability as a revenue strategy. To another area of your expertise, sustainability is no longer just about compliance, right? It's shaping guest preference and business profitability. How can revenue managers use data to balance sustainability efforts with pricing and profit goals? Do you see a sustainability becoming a measurable factor in AI
look,
driven? Uh-huh.
I think that I've been seeing this for many years. In fact, 3 years ago, when I came on board of BEONx to kind of deliver what I had put on the roadmap with them, which was the whole rebranding. I sat down with the founders and we had several conversations. And I think that the one thing that I was talking about back then was, the industry will have to build some sort of sustainability index that's going to be used across the industry, because guests are no longer just willing to choose hotels based on the location and the price and the reputation, but they're also understand how green are how good for the world are you as a brand. Are you doing the right things? Now, where it becomes really interesting from my perspective, in the end, I'm a tech guy, and I like to change how people think and how processes change, and how you can actually make something more sustainably profitable. So profitability on its own, I think that, or sustainability on its own, I think it got to a point where people became almost allergic to it. If you talk about something just sustainable and green, like, oh God, this is so fake, greenwashing and all that kind of stuff. and we really don't have to uh, do that anymore, because the hotels that implemented sustainable solutions have become extremely profitable, during the pandemic and after the pandemic. So the more solutions that are sustainably profitable that a hotel can implement, using data to understand, how many staff do I need on a specific day, versus the guests that I have to service them well and not waste the hours of staffing. I mean, this is something that there's interesting companies doing. There's a company called Dicho that does it, which is amazing, which is kind of something we want to bring into our platform, so we can kind of add all the different layers, because you can manage the pricing, but if you can manage the costs as well, then you can have total profitability as something that's achievable. And that's where I think where the money is and what everybody's trying to achieve.
Amazing. We're talking a lot about the tech side of things, but I wanted to bring it back to Alvaro's point in that focus wire piece. And also something that Tess McGoldrick brought up she's with Revenue Analytics on our series earlier at dojo.live. And that was how AI is transforming revenue management on the human side. So what is happening in terms of cross team collaboration, the guest experience, strategic decision making? How do you see the role of the people using these technologies evolving, and maybe what skills are most valuable in this AI driven future?
Yes. Well, I think that this is not just in revenue management. This is across every single profession on the face of the planet Earth. I think that everybody will need to understand how to use AI to help them to do their job better, faster, more efficiently. So that's basically the role of AI. Is not, I don't think, is to replace necessarily, all the workforce that we have. Of course, a lot of it can be done by AI. And if you know how to prompt it well, you're actually able to really use that power to make humans almost like superhumans in a way, because your day becomes way longer. You have a lot more time to do things that you didn't have time to do before. So it's a different um, uh, uh, it's a different perspective. So I don't think necessarily. I think the big risk is, if you do not know how to use AI, you won't have a job, because people that know how to use AI will know how to do what you do 10 times faster, and with 10 times more, efficacy and efficiency and ability to, boil down on things that you take you weeks in minutes. So, I think that in regardless where, what you're working with, if you don't learn how to prompt well, if you don't learn how to use AI and all the different applications of it to support you in your role, I think that there's a big problem there. So if you are a revenue manager that just sits there and looks at the revenue management system and thinks that that's it, I mean, I think you're in trouble. I mean, you're pretty much dead and you don't know about it. Now, if you basically prepare yourself and deep dive and learn and keep up with technology, and that's like I said, for everyone. That's for me, for you, for everyone, because a lot of the stuff that we do today can be done with help better than we can do ourselves. I mean, I do a lot of business plans for different companies and things, write a lot of articles, and I write. I have to do forecasts on businesses, and the time that I used to take to create something, it was so long. I mean, this image that you have behind us, my very first job, in my life, was actually producing photographs and videos, and just to get that bad, those sheets, that wallpaper, that screen there on the wall, I mean, that was so expensive, it took so long. This was a prompt that I actually got it from Alvaro, because I loved the way he did it. Alvaro did this, he's not a marketing guy, but he did it, and he basically went there, created ChatGPT, and said, "Look, I just created this one." So basically, how amazing is that? I mean, this is fantastic. I mean, this on brand. It didn't take us a lot of time. It shows exactly what we're talking about. It's a data room, and there's a room in the hotel, and that's what we work on. And basically, AI does things for you in a way that you could never do before. So, it's so much cheaper, so much more efficient, and so much better. I mean, if it's see some of the stuff they used to produce, 20 years ago, it looked nowhere as good as this. I can I can guarantee you that, and it costs a thousand times more.
Uh, that's hilarious. And you're right. You're absolutely right. Uh,
Yeah. Um, go, amazing insights. I'm curious. Is there a lot of noise in my background? I'm sorry. No?
a
A
Can you
little
little
hear me
bit.
bit,
okay?
but go with it. Roll with it.
Okay, it's okay. So in this series, Alex, the paths to total revenue optimization, we touch with ideas. One of the beginners, Saver, they emphasize in our show the shift toward total revenue and profit optimization. Olga Rodriguez said that this should be approached in phases. Do you agree? What's the most effective way to for hoteliers to move beyond just rev and start monetizing more touch points?
Well, I think that revenue management on its own, it's just one of the many moving parts of a hotel, and it's an important one for sure. However, you need to do it by phases because unfortunately, it's almost like trying to eat like an apple, an orange, and a banana all at the same time. I mean, you can't do that. I mean, your throat can't your mouth can cope with it.
You
So you
can
need to
try,
take
but you're gonna choke.
yeah, exactly. You need to have them all lined up, and you can see exactly what's coming next, but you need to process it one at a time to be able to make the most of it. So I think, unfortunately, all tech companies are trying to get there, but you've got to break it down into pieces that basically take you to where you're going. It's like you can't go to the top of the stairs without going step by step. You need to go like each one of the stairs that you need to go to get to the top. They're just part of the ladder. You can't just basically take jumps. I mean, you can, and we are, but the ones that are possible, but you can't because AI has literally made us go on 10 steps at a time instead of one at a time. But you still have to go, progressively. You can't go from A to Z without going through each one of them. So I think it's a sound advice or sound comments. I think it's unfortunately, I'm a guy who's always like living in the future in a way, and I always think that I would like things to be a lot faster than they are. But the reality is we still have got a lot of limitations on development of technology. I was talking to a CTO of a very interesting business last week that does how can I say um, almost like self verification of Internet of Things. So let's say a computer talks to a lamp and say, "Are you a lamp? Are you a computer?" And they basically kind of do like a crypto recognition that the lamp is a lamp and the computer is a computer, so they cannot be hacked. I mean, that's insane, right? But the point that he was saying was, if you go to San Francisco and look at the Silicon Valley and you look at the developers there, now there's a massive crisis with let's say with mid-level developers, because all the work that was done by not great developers is now being done by AI. And now you need to have a developer that is super amazing to oversee all these AI agents that are doing the development of the product for them. So it's almost like you become the maestro of an orchestra, and you need to kind of like the conductor. You need to kind of really be able to understand how each instrument plays and how it should be fixed if it needs to be fixed, so you can guide it. So I think that that's the biggest transformation that we're going to be seeing in tech. So tech teams that had 50 people might go down to 20, but they will have 50 AI agents doing it. So it's a uh, it's definitely, I mean, it's definitely happening already, and the problem is that from what I can see is if you get rid of the mid level developers, the number of people that are great developers are going to be so small, right? Because and then you're never going to have great developers if you don't have the guys that are in the middle, like we talked about, right? So that's going to
Yep.
create, I think, a even bigger problem that we have in terms of shortages of developers. that know what they're doing that can use AI. But that's exactly what I just mentioned to you guys in the very beginning. Like if you don't use AI, if you don't know how to do it, then you basically aren't able to do it.
Yeah, it's a dance, of course, somewhat of a catch-22, chicken and the egg kind of
Yeah.
cycle. We'll definitely see how it plays out. I think it's just like you were saying, making the right decisions, being smart about the future, and figuring out even your strengths as an individual, your interests as an individual. And I think that's the part too, that the passion that people have and that spark and that mm, I don't know, the going with our gut that a machine won't. And so I think it's just kind of leaning into that, and that self-discovery will be very helpful. But I guess that leads us to the final question of today's show. And that is, the future. That's really what we wanted to talk about. We have been talking about, but your take on exciting and unexpected trends in hospitality, particularly in the revenue side. Um, what should hotels be preparing for? And maybe what is one or two key actions to focus on that you think is most important over these next 12 months?
Well, it's probably gonna. I mean, I'm not gonna say again. There's a few things that I think that if hotels are not doing, they should be doing, but a lot of them are doing. And I guess the ones that will be watching this probably already do it. But if you don't have a revenue management system or a yield system, you need to get one because it doesn't matter who you basically buy as a solution, you'll be adding 5, 15, 20% extra revenue into your business just by adding a solution. Doesn't matter what it is. Doesn't matter who you go with. Just go with something and deploy it. I think guest messaging is kind of key on the guest journey revenue generation. So during the journey of the guest, there's so many touch points where hotels can make a lot of money out of, all the way from the time you make the booking to the time you leave the property, all the experiences that surround the area where you're staying in the hotel, they can be monetized by the hotels. But if you don't have a guest messaging platform, you can't do that. So therefore, the revenue that you could potentially get by communicating with the guests via WhatsApp or via whatever, I think that it's a massive, massive, massive gap, and a lot of large chains don't even do it, which is insane. Like is unthinkable for me that this technology hasn't really taken the approach that I think has such a huge impact on revenues that is almost should be almost part of it. I mean, in my head, you know, I would have it kind of like, look, you should have a guest messaging platform because that's gonna empower you to really generate a lot more revenue opportunities. You have a direct contact with your customer. You provide them, uh, you know, answering to questions that your concierge would have to do physically, but you can do it, with the AI bot telling you everything the guest without having to wait. People like to have the instant response for things nowadays. Nobody wants to wait for the person on the phone. Oh, busy. Wait a second. You're gonna be on the phone 5 minutes. Just hang up and leave, and you don't have the answer that you wanted. So I think that obviously understanding and looking at, if you don't have an AI expert in the organization, maybe getting somebody who is an expert in AI to get your team up to scratch to know what they're doing. I mean, we hired a group of AI specialists for BEONx 2 years ago, just to show us what to do and how to use it, how to prompt, and it was amazing. Like the impact, it's you see the yield very, very quickly. So I think that there are many things, and like I said, I appreciate retailers are you know exhausted and trying to make sure they can keep the boat afloat, and there's so much opportunity there. But I mean, I see Radisson doing some amazing things. Like today they were talking about the using AI to collect leads for meetings and events, and kind of summarizing. So we're getting there. I mean, first time I've seen voice being used to talk to customers was 7 years ago, and it was amazing back then. But now it's mind blowing. I mean, you can have somebody talking, having a full conversation with you, asking you for your credit card, sending you, I don't know, support. I mean, there's so many things you can do, and it's crazy how businesses today can be very lean and can really be profitable. So it's you see brands like Ruby that were just acquired by IHG because they were like kind of a lean luxury sort of part of the market, which they put technology at their service to really get guests to do everything themselves without having to have massive teams and everything else. So yeah, I think it's a growing trend, and I think um, it's a way to go. I think that we're getting to the point where there's always going to be new ideas, new opportunities in the market, but I think that the winners will always be the ones that can keep up with what's going on and can see a trend and know that that trend is not a trend, it's kind of a change in culture. And I think that the AI is definitely a change in culture, which is a bit scary, but if you don't know anything about it, or if you don't jump on the wagon, it'll be even more scary because you'll be left behind, and then it's going to be very scary. so, so that's what I think. I think it's a great time to be alive and see all this evolution,
Mhm.
and the speed in which all these changes happen.
Absolutely. So we're at that juxtaposition of choose your scary.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And the
But I
exciting.
love it.
I mean, scary is also exciting, right? It's a bit of adrenaline, but
Yes. I love it. I love it. Well, that is a wrap for today's Dojo Live show and the final installment of our Unlocking Revenue Insights from Hospitality's RMS leaders. Alex, thank you so much for sharing your insights on how AI is reshaping the future and everything about revenue management and hospitality in general. Before we go, if our audience wants to know more about you, what you're doing with BEONx or other companies, how might they get a hold of you?
So I'm on LinkedIn, so easy to find me, Alex Barros. You definitely find me there, and it's easy to find, easy to connect. I'm happy always for conversations with different brands, and yeah. Or you can also email me, alex@technest.com.
All right, thank you. Fantastic. We're also here to extend our thanks to Encora, the sponsor of the show, for making this amazing series possible. If you enjoyed the series, please be sure to follow us at dojo.live. That's our website, and also across all of those places like LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, X, and of course the audio version at Spotify. And then just a little bit of housekeeping here. We've got another series coming up that's going to kick off on March 18th, where we'll be doing Powering Hospitality Insights from Hospitalities PMS leaders. So we're going to also explore how AI automation and cloud-based solutions are transforming PMS beyond traditional operations. There we go. The keyword driving guest personalization, revenue growth. That's what we're all about. And seamless hotel tech integrations. So don't miss your chance to hear from industry leaders right here in Dojo Live. And if you'd like to participate on that series, go ahead and let us know. You can reach out directly to myself or America via LinkedIn as well. Amazing. Until then, stay curious, stay innovative, and bye for now. Alex, thank you once again. America, always a
Okay.
pleasure.